Thursday, May 24th, 2018, and an absolutely loaded broadcast to look forward to today. I'm going to have Syrian Girl for 2 segments on the other side of this first break. Doug Hagman for 2 segments in the final 2 segments of the first hour. Roger Stone is going to join us in the second hour. He's got a guest as well, Anthony Bellotti. And then in the 5 o'clock hour, the third hour, I'm going to have Austin Peterson on, a surging Republican candidate who right now it looks like is going to not only defeat the Republican, I shouldn't say neocon, but establishment in Missouri to get the nomination, but then could also unseat Clara McCaskill, which would be a huge step in draining the swamp. Now, aside from all of that, I'm going to have to somehow find a way to cram in all of this news. The big news that everybody's talking about, the FBI admits to spying on Trump while the mainstream media still denies it. You've got Trump canceling the North Korean deal. We'll get into that, or the North Korean summit in Singapore in June. And then you've got Harvey Weinstein apparently going to surrender to law enforcement tomorrow for all the sex allegations against him. What does that mean for other Hollywood stars like Morgan Freeman, who just had 8 women accuse him of sexual assault, which he apologizes for? So I guess that means you were guilty. So you've got all that going on. Meanwhile, Allison Mack is also being questioned. Story comes out today. Jane Doe gives chilling account of what it was like to be one of Allison Mack's alleged sex slaves. So is she talking as well? Is Harvey Weinstein talking? What is going on behind closed doors with that? Maybe Doug Hagman might have some answers. He'll definitely have answers on what we just saw if you were tuned into the InfoWars Live programming. 12 congressmen calling for a special counsel into the closing of the Hillary Clinton email investigation and into the origins of the Trump-Russian collusion probe, which is really just bombshell news. But it's interesting to me, the power of television media is truly, for the most part, unseen. Where the North Korean deal being canceled, or I think better word would be postponed, I still believe that they're going to reach a peace deal. And if you understand the way Asian geopolitics works and how they kind of ram heads and battle, Trump is kind of going into that playing field with them and playing the strong man, unlike Obama, who played the weak man, and then China didn't even roll out a tarmac for him to get off his plane, and he had to get off the rear exit. Where Trump arrives, he gets a whole red carpet scenario. That's because they respect the way Trump handles his business. They didn't respect the way Obama did it, where Asian politics are hardball. But regardless of that, which we can get all into that and what Trump's angle here is, the North Korea summit being canceled, while it is a major loss, I mean, this is a big loss to me for President Trump having to cancel this deal. It's really the mouse that roared, because I do believe the deal will still get done, and it actually, in the long run, may actually help Trump's relations with Kim Jong-un, where it appears that this whole thing was sabotaged by John Bolton, as we told you, and probably Nikki Haley has her fingerprints all over this too. Those two, tell you, I saw Nikki Haley and John Bolton next to Trump a couple days ago when he was doing some address. I almost got sick. I can't do Nikki Haley and John Bolton anymore. I want them out. But the North Korea summit being canceled is the mouse that roared. Well, where that gets all the attention, that equals a big loss for Trump. But then you had the MS-13 roundtable yesterday, and you had the Republican congressman calling for the special counsel into the closing of the Clinton investigation and into the origins of the Trump-Russia collusion probe by Mueller. That's the lion that squeaked. So you've got 2 lions, the MS-13 roundtable, where they find out for a fact that MS-13 gang members use children to get access into the United States. And then you have the Republicans saying we're launching this special counsel, but all the news covers is the North Korea deal, which is the mouse that roared. The MS-13 roundtable and the congressman calling for a special counsel is the line that squeaked. It's Thursday, May 24th, 2018. This is The War Room. I'm your host, Owen Schroyer. Loaded broadcast. Guests include Syrian Girl, Doug Hagman. Roger Stone, my co-host, has Anthony Bellotti on. And then Austin Peterson joins me as well. All kinds of news we need to get to. Before I'm joined by Syrian Girl here in just a moment, before we even did the War Room, we did an hour-long broadcast where we replayed the congressional call for a special counsel into the Hillary Clinton email investigation, or why it was shut down prematurely, and into the origins of the Trump-Russia collusion probe led by Robert Mueller, which the media gave no coverage of. So I said, okay, you know what they say, we're doing it live. And so we went live, and we shut that down about 10 minutes before we went live here on the War Room. And so today is one of the days why InfoWars is so important. While all you're going to see on TV is Trump-North Korea deal, that's the mouse that roared. The lions that are squeaking right now is the MS-13 roundtable from yesterday, where they come out with the findings that MS-13 gang members use children to sneak into the country, and congressmen calling for a special counsel into the Hillary Clinton email investigation and into the Russia probe. But the only way we're able to get this loaded broadcast of guests, the only way we're able to do Craig Sawyer for a Veterans Call-In show tomorrow, the only way we're able to do an hour-long special broadcast before we go live with the War Room, and I'm sure Alex, he went live after his show yesterday. I mean, the only way we're able to do all of this is with your support at InfoWarsStore.com. And yes, I am plugging out of the gates today, not only because it's important for you to support us, but because the guests that I have coming up are going to be so good that I don't want to take any time away from them. So I just want to get this out now and to let you know the only way we're able to do this and continue to expand and hire new people is your support at InfoWarsStore.com. So since it is Memorial Day weekend coming up, you can see the patriotic ad right there at InfoWarsStore.com. You have all kinds of Memorial Day specials going on. The new Real Red Pill Plus is 50% off right now at InfoWarsStore.com. The top-selling popular product, Survival Shield X2, is 25% off at InfoWarsStore.com. The most powerful turmeric formula that I know of, Bodies, is 50% off at InfoWarsStore.com. Other limited-time specials include DNA Force Plus, 50% off, and Super Blue toothpaste, mouthwash, and immune gargle, also 50% off. So this is all part of the Memorial Day weekend specials. These are limited time specials. So get to InfoWarsStore.com. Get yourself one of our quality supplements. Or hey, maybe you're not into supplements. That's fine. We've got ball caps, T-shirts. But how about the toothpaste? How about the shampoo? These are household items that everybody uses, so you can easily make the switch and support us at InfoWarsStore.com. So please support us. That's how this all is possible, and we want to expand. We want to hire more people. Okay, so I'm about to be joined by Syrian Girl. Now, we've got actual news that we're going to get into, and there's news that she wants to talk about. But I just got to say, before she comes on, it's funny to me how this all goes, where I had Syrian Girl on, I think it was last week or 2 weeks ago, and we had a great segment, or 3 segments, I think. It was heated on both ends. I was kind of playing devil's advocate, but making good points. She had good points that were from perspectives that you can only understand coming from where she's at on the globe. But then people are like, oh my gosh, they were fighting. Oh no, it's so bad. No. We can have passionate conversations. This is how we grow together. This is how we are thought-provoking. But then on the back end, I have people telling me, oh, look at Owen shilling for Israel again. Syrian Girl's never going to be on the War Room again. Oh, oops, except she's on with us now. So I guess I'm not that Israel shill you claim I was. So without further ado, let's bring Syrian Girl on today. Now, the big news story that I want to discuss with you is the airstrikes. Last night we saw on the news, Reuters reported, many people reported, even the New York Times reports, a 4-hour battle between Russian mercenaries and U.S. commandos in Syria. So much for that Russian collusion, New York Times, since we're fighting Russians literally on the ground in Syria. But then the U.S. has denied any involvement in that attack. So what is your angle on this? What do you think is going on? What happened in Syria between Russian and U.S. mercenaries last night, or did anything happen?
Well, definitely something happened. We had multiple airstrikes by the U.S. near Deir ez-Zor, like they hitting basically oil fields and Syrian soldiers that were in or near those oil fields. So if you take a look at the corner of the Syria-Iraq border, just down there near Deir Zor, you'll see there's yellow, there's pink, and there's a little bit of black right there. Exactly that border crossing, all the way down the bottom near the border crossing. Um, you see that ISIS pocket is a little bit more. Yes, there you go. You're getting closer. You're getting warmer. It's quite. The border crossing is. It's hard to see. You see where the river runs? It's where the end of the river runs. It's the end
So
of the
down there at the
separation.
bottom, I'm guessing, right there.
Yeah, exactly. So that place is extremely important. And what happened is, like last year, the Syrian army was rushing to that border crossing because it's a very strategic and important border crossing. And at the same time, the US was rushing in, well, with their Kurdish SDF proxies, they were rushing into the oil fields near the area, which are on the east side of that river. Now, they wanted to get to that border crossing as well, but they didn't make it in time. The Syrian army and the Iraqi army connected there. The purpose of having got there before the Syrian army is to separate, to cut off Iraq and Syria, just like it said in the Clinton emails that WikiLeaks published. You know, one of the things that the WikiLeaks emails, Clinton emails said was, oh, ISIS is useful because this way we cut off Iraq from Syria. It's kind of like
right. They use these proxy wars to keep countries from actually being able to come together where, oh, maybe we can come together. Oh, wait, crap, we got to deal with these terrorists in the area now.
Yeah, and now there's a terrorist right in the middle, so you can't even trade with each other. You can't, you can't connect basically. So the Syrian army got there first. They connected up with the Iraqi army, but for that fact alone, that ISIS pocket has been allowed to survive there for basically almost 12 months, I think. And the thing is that Syrian military cannot really cross the river to get to that ISIS pocket because the US has designated, like, if any Syrian soldier or Russian soldier crosses this river, they're going to be bombed. So basically, it's up to the US to deal with that because this is the line that they've designated. And unfortunately, they haven't been doing so. But on top of that, they're actually attacking the Syrian military there, which, because they want them to lose the border crossing. ISIS is useful in that position because it can harass the Syrian military and force them to lose the border crossing. So then the US can come in and take it. See, that's the idea. So they actually attacked that position and the oil pumping air stations around that position as well.
So
I don't know about the battles between the mercenaries. I'm sorry, I don't have that detail, but I do know the airstrike.
So you're saying, though, that is the region where the airstrikes, or at least some form of airstrikes or something happened?
Yeah, that is where the airstrikes against the Syrian military and its allies happened.
Now, who do you think is running these operations right now? I mean, do you think this is the Trump administration? Do you think this is holdovers from the Obama administration? Maybe the McCains, the John Kerrys who had contact with these people? I mean, who is actually telling these people what to do in that pocket of terrorists?
I think from watching InfoWars since my youth, I've gathered that there is a military-industrial complex that's running the show, and it seems that after Trump's election and everything he said about no more regime change and no more funding terrorism, and Hillary and Obama was responsible for the growth of ISIS, all of that stuff went by the wayside as soon as he got elected, and what we have is a deep state. Basically, what I want to say is the people who are running the show, I can't name their names, but they've been running the show for the last 20 years, and there's no democracy in the US. And unfortunately, that's the truth. I'm sorry.
All right, well, we're going to get into more of this on the other side. I'm wondering, I believe that you have people like John Kerry and John McCain, holdovers of the deep state, that are either operating these people outside of the scope of the U.S. government at this point, or you could even have Netanyahu assets operating those people in that region as well. That's where my radar goes, but we'll talk more with Syrian Girl on the other side. Don't go anywhere. Syrian Girl is my guest here, and I want to finish up the discussion where you've got a lot of media, including Syrian media, saying it was the U.S. leading airstrikes in the eastern side of Syria. The U.S. has denied such airstrikes. The site of the strikes, they're saying, is between Al-Bul Kamal and Humimia. Syrian Girl can elaborate on that. She knows these areas better than I do. But I'm trying to figure what's going on here. Why would you have all of these outlets saying that it was the U.S. that led these airstrikes, but then the U.S. would deny it? I'm not even going to go into the fact that they're talking about, again, U.S. fighting Russians, killing Russians. I mean, now you're talking about hundreds of Russians that the U.S. military is engaged with and killed, but somehow we're colluding with Russia. I won't even get into that wild aspect of it. But, I mean, one thing that I'll say, I mean, good or bad, Trump has at least announced when he's going to lead these strikes, and it's been like a whole public thing. You see it all on TV. So this doesn't even jive with how Trump has been approaching that situation militarily. But I'm curious, again, my question remains the same. If it truly was, and they have evidence that it was, they say U.S. fighter jets or U.S. artillery or whatever, again, is this equipment that fell into ISIS's hands under the Obama administration during the Bush administration that we know? So what's the deal with that? But does this add up, though? Is that the area you were talking about, Abul Kamal and Humima? Is that the area you were talking about, Syrian Girl?
Yes. Abu Kamal is the city on the Syrian side of that border crossing, and Al-Qaim is the city on the Iraqi side. But just to point this out, and this is probably because there wasn't enough media about it, but this has happened before. I mean, it's not just that Trump announces what he's going to do. There has been probably 2 or 3 times that the U.S. has attacked the Syrian military and Russians on the west side of the Euphrates without Trump so much as making any statements at all. I mean, you saw it on the news. Remember when hundreds of Russian mercenaries were killed? And
yeah, that was Mike Pompeo.
The media was really,
yeah,
absolutely. And maybe it is there is an individual basis to this, because if you recall, 3 months after Trump's election and in the months subsequently, there was basically a cleaning up, but not of the swamp, of people like Michael Flynn who were against war, basically. So I think what happened was any part of the Trump administration that didn't want these wars, those were the guys that they got rid of. They fired Bannon, they got rid of Flynn. So yeah, I don't know why they're denying this, because they've done it before.
Well, those situations are kind of 2 different situations. I mean, Flynn was the target of the deep state, and they took him down in the Russia probe, whereas Bannon, I guess, kind of hurt himself. I don't really know. That's kind of a weird situation there. Look, I'm just sick of these wars. I don't understand what involvement we have in Syria. I don't know why we have to be there. Of course, people can make up whatever reason they want, oil this, for the Jews that. Whatever it is, I'm sick of it. I'm done with it. I'm done about hearing U.S. striking in Syria. I'm done about U.S. killing Russians in Syria. Just get out. What are we still doing there? Everybody knows Assad's not gassing his own people. So it's just ridiculous to me. And it's just sad that we can't even get the truth. We don't even know. It's so muddled over there. We don't even know.
I would just simply ask why that ISIS pocket is still there on the east side of that river, and why the U.S. isn't allowing Syrians to get onto the, east side of their own country. That's the question we need to be asking here. Whether they deny the attack or not, that's something that still needs to be highlighted. I mean, we're not able to get to the Syrian oil fields, which means that 80% of Syria's oil is now under the control of the U.S. Syria can't rebuild. If Syria can't rebuild, refugees can't go back. It's really, they need to go home. There's no other, if they're not going to fight ISIS, which clearly they have no intention for doing so, they should get out and leave it for some people who do want to fight ISIS.
Well, and to answer your question, this is not what I voted for. I voted for less expansion. I voted for less involvement in the Middle East. But again, and it's funny, you can comment on this, or you can go, and I know you wanted to talk about the Golan Heights there, but it's like here you could actually show evidence of Trump, quote unquote, colluding with Israel in foreign policy, executing Israel's foreign policy, but no media will touch that. It's all about Russian collusion. So there is no Russian collusion, but we report on that 24/7. Meanwhile, our military is okay running Israel's foreign policy, but don't touch that. And then, of course, people send out the thing. It's like, oh, yeah, and that's because every media member on television is a Jew. Okay, well, that's not illegal, okay? If you want to make some other point about that, that's fine, but that shows you the power of television media, really, at the end of the day.
It is very powerful. And it's really, the fact is that these policies were drawn up in 1982 in Israel by a man named Oded Yunon, how dividing these countries around the Middle East would benefit Israel. And I guess I question why having one ally in the Middle East is better than having 22, you know, although Saudi Arabia is an ally of the US as well, and they seem to have no problem with Israel or Kushner. So, and you know, that brings me to the statements about the Golan Heights. If we can go to that for a minute. Jumping on the Jerusalem thing, where Trump declared that Jerusalem was the capital of Israel, no longer is it Tel Aviv in the US's mind, but everywhere else in the world, it's still Tel Aviv, because declaring that it's part of Jerusalem is a contravening international law. And what was designated way back when. But now they want to contravene international law again, and they're putting to Congress that Trump should declare that the Golan Heights is Israeli land instead of Syrian land. Now, the Golan Heights has Syrians living in it. They've been living in it for, you know, thousands of years, long before Israel even existed. It's currently got Israeli soldiers occupying the place, but that doesn't make it Israel. I mean, if the U.S. occupied Iraq, does that mean that Iraq is now a state of the U.S.?
Well, I'll tell you what this tells me. What this tells me is that the funny thing is you haven't even mentioned Netanyahu's name, but you've mentioned Trump many times. That just shows you how weak Netanyahu is. Netanyahu is so pathetic that he can't even negotiate deals for himself. He can't even put his nose in this business. He has to run to Trump. He has to run to Putin. Netanyahu is an ineffective leader. He needs to be removed from power in Israel immediately. I'm sorry. That guy does nothing for Israel. He does nothing for Israeli foreign relations except start more wars. I'm getting real sick of this Netanyahu guy.
I'm sure if we were to remove him, he would be replaced with someone equally nasty. But he is, I completely agree with you, he's a corrupt, lying criminal.
Well, I will tell you, not all members of the Israeli military, in fact, most, I mean, and even members of the government there in Israel have spoken out against Netanyahu in these expanded wars. So he's more isolated, I think, than most people realize in his pro-war stance.
The problem is, I mean, I sincerely hope that there is a movement inside Israel that want a secular state for all, not just for Jews. And they want to, you know, make Israel not a Jewish state, but a state for people who live there, whatever their religion might be. I hope that there's a movement for that. Unfortunately, even like whether they be right or left, the government policies in Israel is to maintain this, you know, philosophy. Now,
final 20 seconds. Here's where I'll play devil's advocate. What other country in the world is there a Jewish state?
Why should there be? Why should there be an Islamic state?
How many countries have an Islamic state?
I mean, that's the problem. I mean, exactly right. You come to the crux of it. The Islamic state and the Jewish state is exactly the same thing. If you have an Islamic state,
coexist? And can they coexist? Syrian Girl, thank you for joining me. We'll have you again soon. Doug Hagmann is my guest for the next two segments. HagmannReport.com is his website. He's always got his ear to the ground when it comes to legal developments. And two things right now that I think are incredibly developing, Doug. One, you've got the whole Trump Spygate thing with the Obama administration getting blown up right now. The Inspector General's report busts that wide open. Clapper then admits that the FBI was spying, yet somehow the mainstream media on television has no problem at all running cover for the whole thing and continuing to act like there still was no spying. But then on the back end, you've got congressmen calling for a special counsel into the Hillary Clinton email investigation and into the origins of the Trump-Russia collusion probe. Except the big difference here to me, Doug, and this is what I want to get your first comments on, is that the Russian collusion probe that's been going on for 2 years, really, when you get down to it with the spying and then the Mueller part of it, they still have nothing. A special counsel into the Hillary Clinton email investigation or a special counsel into the origins of the Trump-Russia probe would take a month to get going and to finish because they already have all the details and the evidence there. So where do you think this goes next? When do we see a special counsel launched? When do we see the Russian probe stopped? When does the Inspector General's report get more momentum? What do you think is the next development here, Doug Hagmann?
Wow. Yeah. Great questions, all of them. Well, number one, obviously, 365 plus days, special counsel. The best that they can come up with process crimes unrelated to any kind of election interference, Russian collusion with Donald Trump, exceeding the mandate, obviously. But where this is going next, and I think that you hit on this a little bit coming into the program today, the fact that all of this exists rests at the feet of Barack Hussein Obama. This is not Spygate. This is not Obamagate or Clappergate or whatever. This is Obamagate, and this is the largest seditious spying operation in American history, in my view, especially in modern American history, where you've got the weaponization of the Department of Justice, the FBI, at the behest of, or at least under the tutelage of Barack Hussein Obama and his colleagues there, including but not limited to Valerie Jarrett. What we're seeing now, today, historic day, as the Gang of Eight plus Trey Gowdy, John Kelly meeting with the DOJ and FBI officials, the DNI to debate transparency. We're seeing that took place at noon and is extending this afternoon. What we're seeing right now is everything being exposed. The calls for complete transparency, declassify pretty much everything, show it all. And this is where we're at. But the deep state doesn't want to do that, obviously, because should they do that, it's going to implicate Barack Obama. It's going to implicate Hillary Clinton, as Hillary Clinton, the bought and paid for dossier by Hillary Clinton, the DNC, bought and paid for opposition research by Hillary Clinton and the DNC, under the, again, with the approval, facilitation of Barack Hussein Obama. So where we're at and where this is going, this is a fight right now within the deep state itself, or within the government itself by the deep state. And Donald Trump, I think, is playing this masterfully. I think he's using, he's relying, I think, in part on the Inspector General's report, which is coming out. If it doesn't drop tomorrow, which it could, but I'm not sure it will. It'll come out the first week of, or the first business day after the congressional
I have
research.
a feeling, you know what, if you don't mind right there, I actually have a feeling that the reason maybe now, because we know how these people operate, the reason why they have Weinstein about to come out tomorrow and surrender is maybe they expected the Inspector General's report to drop tomorrow too, so they tried to siphon momentum off of that. Trump's smart enough, or Horowitz is smart enough, they just won't release it tomorrow because they know how to control a media narrative.
Yeah, which is driving the soy boy leftist mopes insane. I love it. The controlling the narrative is what Donald Trump is really good at least to the extent. Well, you saw this week how he came out and with his Twitter messages saying, "My goodness, you know, a human asset inside the campaign. How terrible this is." Well, he knew about this for forever, basically. And by the way, I want to mention this. According to my sources and information that I've uncovered, and it seems to be pretty consistent with others, there was just more. There was more than just one intelligence asset inserted into the Donald Trump campaign, and it certainly
looks
wasn't.
like it looks to me like 3.
Yeah, that's my number. I've got it at 3 as well. Now some are saying upwards of 6, but 3 primaries. In addition to stuff on Helper, you've got a couple of other people I won't mention, but and you guys are at the tip of the spear on this one on stuff on Helper. We got basically broke that at the same time. So, but this is one of the most egregious forms of sedition, I believe. Comey, Clapper, Lynch, the entire stable of usual suspects here. And I know you've been really working on this. You've been doing a tremendous job exposing this. And this is, it's interesting to me to watch the War Room, watch InfoWars, break news, as we do, and see the blowback that comes from this, blowback that has nothing to do with what we're talking about or with the subject matter. And it's directly proportional. The blowback against you guys and against us is increasing. And the reason for this is because of the exposure that we are giving to the seditious and traitorous activity of these individuals that were operating under Hillary Clinton and Obama. So I think it's what we're about to see. And I'm glad you mentioned that too about the Weinstein thing. There's a lot of fire there, obviously a lot of smoke, but I think that's going to lead into some pretty serious territory when that's all said and done.
Well, especially when you consider Weinstein's connections and how big he was in the Democrat Party. I mean, this is not just a coincidence. And I just want to actually kind of talk about the blowback that you're talking about there real quick, because the general public probably doesn't even understand or even see half of the blowback. I mean, honestly, the blowback we get, the general public maybe sees 30% of it, and 70% of it we just bury, or you just have to bury it, or you just deal with it and move through it. But if the public wants to see really how serious the blowback is, look at what social media is doing right now. Everything social media is doing right now to censor and create algorithms and do everything to control the content you see, that is all in response to what InfoWars is doing, what the Hagman report is doing, what everybody else is doing, sharing our links, what Cernovich is doing, and the like. They are freaking out. That's the blowback. They don't control the narrative anymore. People are unplugging their cable, and they're going onto YouTube, or they're going onto the internet, wherever, to get their news. And so now they have to control that. They had control of the TV. Okay, so when people are going to the TV, perfect. We can control the narrative. Uh-oh, people aren't going to the TV anymore. They're going to Infowars.com/show. They're going to thehagmanreport.com. What do? Well, now they have to control and censor the internet. So if the population wants to understand the blowback, that's it. That's them censoring what you can see so that they can control the narrative instead of the truth controlling the narrative, which is what we deliver.
And again, you nailed it right there. People need to understand, and this is critical for me, when people see InfoWars, the War Room, the Hagman Report, others being the recipient of some bad press, or some the stories out there that are just turning us into, attempting to marginalize us, our reputations, personally and professionally. In addition to the censorship, because they can't fight us on the facts. They've got to shut us up. Either that, or marginalize us, or just take us out completely, which I'm sure that's been discussed.
That's their dream.
Exactly. So my wish, my hope is for everyone watching this, understand what we are putting up with individually and collectively is something you will never see. You will never see how bad this is and how bad this has gotten.
And I'll tell you what, really, I mean, not even for me or for Doug or Alex or anything, but for your future, for the country, you need to understand this is an attack on free speech. Screw Owen Schroyer's namesake. How about free speech? That lives on forever. That's what we have to fight for here. We'll be right back with more Doug Hagman. So as we're talking about the internet censorship, I need to talk about the RNC, the Trump campaign, and Brad Parscale sending a letter to Facebook and Twitter on the censorship they're engaged in. And there is such a case here. It's really unbelievable. In fact, the gentleman, Austin Peterson, who's running for Senate in Missouri, Republican, he's been censored on social media. Literally, they ban his account. Just one of dozens of Republican candidates that this has happened to. Democrat candidates, couldn't name one that's been shut down from Twitter or Facebook. So I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that as we're in the middle of talking about all of this. That's another thing they're trying to do, is just censor candidates for office so they can't even get in. They don't get the fair public exposure. But I'll digress from that, and I want to get back into the Obama spying deal because, Doug, here's something that I think is very mysterious about this, to me, if you will. Kind of like the Iran deal thing, but this is a different issue. Why would Obama spy on Trump? I mean, let's really think about this, Doug. He knows what he did was illegal. Maybe because it's been going on so long, he thought he could get away with it. Maybe he thought Hillary Clinton was getting in, so he thought he could get away with it. But that still doesn't explain why. Why would Obama do this? Why would he put his neck out there so much and put himself at risk to do this? Did he think he was going to get a Supreme Court justice seat? Did he have some deal with Hillary? Was he afraid that his own crimes were going to be uncovered if Trump won and not Hillary? I mean, why do you think that Obama was involved in this? Why do you think Obama let this happen? And they can't say he didn't. We have the text, we have the emails, we knew he was in the know about this. And if he wasn't in the know, then you're admitting he was an incompetent president. Either way, you really fail there. So why do you think Obama was driven to be ahead of this spy campaign?
That perhaps is the most important question to be answered. And that's at the heart of everything, because you've got individuals risking their lives, their careers, everything they've got. People like Strzok and Page and others in that same category, risking everything, violations of the law, violating the law, to conduct these operations. You've got corrupt FISA proceedings. You've got all of this, and you're right. The question is why. And many people, most people, I think today would say, well, it's to assure a Hillary Clinton victory. My conversations with people such as Diana West, author of American Betrayal, and others monitoring this, she has found, and we've found, very similar activity from the, I'm going to say, the World War II, post-World War II actions as today, which I mean to say this. This is not about politics. This is about the implementation of a Marxist, Stalinist, socialist, communist, ultimately, ideology in America. When Obama came in 2008 and said he was going to use 5 days away from fundamentally changing the United States, he meant that. And he meant that in such a way as to create this collective in the United States. And of course, we've seen the 16-year plan, 8 years of Obama, 8 years of Hillary. Is that 8 years of Democrat or 16 years of Democratic rule? No. That was an agenda to transform the United States, the republic. We are a republic, to transform us from a constitutional republic into this communist collective. That's where all the marbles were. That was for everything. And people need to understand the intensity of the ideology, how important this is. This is not about politics. This isn't about votes. This is not about, well, I'll tell you what it is about. It is about taking the United States and removing the United States as this stopgap, as the speed bump for this global governance, which we hear so much about. And this is no longer a Republican-Democrat issue. It's not a right-left issue. It's an evil-good issue, good versus evil. So this, again, at the heart of all of this is that very question you asked, why? And this was to change the United States. If you look at the accomplishments, in quotation marks, of Obama, what he did for the first 8 years, and look at what Hillary promised to do in the subsequent 8 years that she expected, you would see us taken from where we were, a constitutional or a representative republic, into a full-blown communist state. And some people might say that's hyperbole, but when you look at the objectives, look at what's been accomplished. It's not hyperbole. So the insertion, and notice as well, notice who we're talking about in terms of who was engaged in this kind of activity. You've got the number 4 man at the Department of Justice, Bruce Orr, his wife Nellie Orr. Nellie Orr, a Stalin apologist, somebody very fluent in Russian. In fact, by the way, so much a Stalin apologist that she did numerous white papers on this, and of course, adhering to the ideology that that so many of the other actors adhere to as well. So this is about a coup. It's not a political coup. It's an ideological coup. It's for the transformation of this country. And by the way, when we were asking questions back in 2008 about Obama's bona fides, his identity, not his birthplace, but his constitutional eligibility as it relates to his allegiance to this country, we were fought by both the leftists and, of course, Republicans. And that speaks to his allegiance. And that's what our founding fathers had warned about, the enemy within the gate. It was kind of funny that John Brennan had sent out a tweet over the weekend or this past week, quoting Cicero and about mistakes and basically being an idiot. But I responded back to Brennan. The appropriate Cicero quote here would be the enemy within. And that's what we're dealing with. The infiltration for really a decade, over a decade, the infiltration of the active participants in this plot. This was not hatched overnight. This didn't start in the spring of 2016. This began really in earnest, I would argue, during the Second World War. But this began in earnest really with the identification of Donald Trump as a serious candidate for the presidency.
Well, okay, see, I'm glad that you said that right there. And I want the audience to hold that thought, because what you just said was so powerful that I want to just pontificate on that a little bit. So, like you said, it's a speed bump to the New World Order, the globalist world order, where the United States falls right in line with the rest of the communist world government, instead of the United States remaining a free, independent, sovereign nation that changed the way of the world, where every citizen is in control of their own destiny. So they take a republic, which is what we have here, and they want to turn it into a democracy where they can then make us voted into the New World Order. You see, if we're a republic, we can't get voted into a global government. If we're a democracy where the vote rules, then we can get voted into a one world government where they flood into the country all non-citizens, flood into the country all the illegal voters, vote with dead people, do whatever they can to change the democracy with the vote by rigging the vote, and then vote us into a one world government. So that's the overarching issue. But then to get back to what you said, which was key, and it all made sense to me now, the reason why they started spying in July 2016 was because that was right after the Republican National Convention when Trump was made the nominee. That's when they realized Trump is the real deal. He's actually going to run, and he could probably even beat Hillary. That's when they started the spy campaign. That's when they knew he had a chance to win. That's when it all began. And I think it's even more clear to me now that that agenda that you spoke of, which was the globalist agenda, knock America down so that the one world government could come right in smooth sailing, that is really what's behind all this. Perhaps there's other issues, but an ideological issue, that's number one. And I also want to just say this, and it's funny how they don't talk about this, Doug, but everyone that you've mentioned here, you know, Stroke, McCabe, Orr, Page, the list goes on and on. All these people have been disgraced from the FBI. Rubicki, they've all been fired or resigned. I mean, think about that. That really shows you that this is real stuff here.
Exactly. And those are the people. But by the way, I believe the Sessions or the OIG, Michael Horowitz and John Huber, I believe they are working together in place of, at the moment, in place of a second special counsel. But what you had mentioned, I wanted to get that in before I forgot, but what you had mentioned as well about the international scope of this, think too, and everyone needs to understand, this is international in scope because Brennan, in order to somewhat adhere to some of the rules anyway, the rules according to Brennan, went out, dipped into our friends, our intelligence friends in the UK and in Australia and other countries, and had spies from other countries come into the United States, where the CIA was the benefactor of the information, which was then shared with Comey. Think of the group Hacklet, which would be the UK-based firm, the cousin to, or the
and that's how they were able to get around all the domestic spying laws, is they use spies overseas, whether it be MI5 or whatever intelligence they want to get. They use them to gather the intelligence so that they don't have to do it illegally here domestically. Oh, but then they did it anyway. Shocker. Doug Hagman, HagmanReport.com. Great to have you on as usual. We'll be right back, ladies and gentlemen, with Roger Stone. Don't go anywhere. Well, yesterday I told you that you could identify the bias in the media by looking at their reporting on the Mueller probe compared to the reporting on the Ken Starr probe. So we've got a clip that was put together, a flashback montage. The same media that excused Bob Mueller abused Ken Starr.
There is growing controversy tonight about whether the newly named independent counsel in the Whitewater case is independent or a Republican partisan allied with the Get Clinton movement.
What the judge said, Peter, plays directly into what the White House's allies have been saying, that this is an overzealous prosecutor overreaching in a bid to bring down the president.
By pandering to Clinton haters, Mr. Starr appears to be abandoning all pretenses of impartiality. He went into this job with a reputation as a fair-minded conservative. He now looks more like a political hitman, desperately eager for a future Supreme Court appointment.
If Ken Starr is a credible prosecutor, he will bring this to a conclusion, and the Clintons will be exonerated.
Well, if he doesn't come forward very soon with credible evidence of law breaking, he will go down in history as the peeping Tom prosecutor.
I'm going to call any witness I can to prove that Ken Starr is a partisan zealot who has had a chip on his shoulder.
Have you any doubt that Kenneth Starr and his his deputies are pursuing an agenda that is purely political?
Let's not pretend for a moment that the Starr report is a balanced, judicious presentation. It's not. It is a partisan prosecutor with some zealous aides who's trying to make a case against a guy he despises.
Couldn't this be just a witch hunt? Couldn't the Democrats who've been, and President Clinton's people who've been defending him all these months be right?
Would not there be some sort of comparison to a persecutor as opposed to a prosecutor for Mr. Starr?
Ken Starr is like a deer caught in the headlights. He's got big bug eyes. He's going to do anything. He's so mad that his neck is going to blow up. This is about vindictiveness. That's what this is.
But
this is about
even on the underlying facts of it, Geraldo,
it's a hate crime. This is a hate crime.
At any point, have you suggested to Judge Starr that it's time to shut the office down or that he may be pressing too hard?
Should Starr resign?
When is this going to be over?
The citizenry want the investigation, the investigator, the experts, and the media to go away.
What about the image and impression of Ken Starr as the sort of evil puppeteer behind this entire investigation?
If this reminds you of George Orwell's novel 1984, it should. The government in that book poked and pried everywhere. Its slogan was, "Big Brother is watching you." And with the aid of the thought police, he was. Welcome to Orwell's world.
It finally dawned on me that the person Ken Starr has reminded me of facially all this time was Heinrich Himmler.
Twinkle, twinkle, little star, now we see how wrong you are.
Starr is regarded as an occupying army in Little Rock. It's sort of like, you know, they regard things like the French felt about the Germans.
Up above your jury high, like the judge up in the sky.
I mean, this has been called demented pornography. Pornography for Puritans?
When you drag the agents in, when you bully moms and kin.
This guy is leaving as a pious prosecutor, an inept prosecutor, someone who engaged in partisan witch hunts for whatever the reasons.
Then you kiss the treacherous trip, twinkle, twinkle, DC drip. Twinkle, twinkle, little star, now we see how small you are. Thank you, boys. Thank you. Thank you.
So there you go, ladies and gentlemen. There's the same media. Ken Starr's the worst. It's a witch hunt. The people are sick of it. Ken Starr bad. Ken Starr bad. People don't want it. Witch hunt, 1984. Flash forward here, 2018. Same media pundits, silent. Don't seem to be bothered by Robert Mueller's same tactics, if not worse. So pretty incredible knowing that the entire investigation by Mueller started on a fake document. But there you go. Do you see how the media protects the Clintons now, folks? Do you see how the cabal works? If this doesn't show you how biased and hypocritical these people are, I don't know what will. If you can't see it from their own faces, if you can't hear it from their own lips, what can I do for you? I don't know. I don't know. Maybe it's time for you to be unplugged from the Matrix or something. We'll be right back to get Roger Stone's take on this. He'll break it all down. You know that. Well, what a time to get the one and the only Roger Stone on with us here today. Not just to respond to the video we just played of the media bias reporting on Ken Starr versus how they've reported on Mueller, but just the entire landscape is so unbelievable right now. And where does Roger Stone fall? But right in the middle of it. As the Wall Street Journal publishes, Roger Stone sought information on Clinton from Assange, emails show. Well, let's say even if that was true, guess what? It's not a crime. But I don't need to speak up for Roger Stone. He can do that for himself, and he will, right here on the War Room, right now. Roger, where do you want to begin? The allegations that you're a Russian operative because you might have a Russian martini, or the difference between the media covering Robert Mueller and Ken Starr? I bring on Roger Stone now.
Thank you, comrade. Owen. I'm delighted to be here. The American people need to know about this faux reporter, Shelby Holliday. This woman is the single most duplicitous, dishonest, so-called reporter that I've met in my 40 years in American politics. She has a Wall Street Journal story up only half an hour ago in which emails which I gave her which proved that Randy Credico, the out-of-work radio personality in New York, was indeed my back channel to Assange in my efforts to confirm that he had the mother lode on Hillary. She now reports that these emails should have been turned over to the House Intelligence Committee, and they weren't. The problem is that the wording of the document request for the House Intelligence Committee was extremely precise, and these documents fell well outside of it. Nice try, Adam Schiff. If Congressman Schiff could take 5 minutes to go off camera and actually read the document request from the committee that he is a member of, he would not make these kind of defamatory attacks on me. Or perhaps he still would. This is a classic example of fake news. For the info warriors out there, mark this woman in your conscience, Shelby Halliday, fake news.
Roger, you might be going a little too far, assuming that Adam Schiff can even read. I'm not even sure if that's the case at this point.
Well, look, you have a terrific piece by Cheryl Atkinson up at the Hill, 8 reasons why it is becoming clearer that Donald Trump was very definitely the target of an intelligence covert operation to build their insurance policy, as Peter Strzok called it in his text messages, in the off but improbable chance that Trump might win. That's what this is all about. Now, I reported yesterday on the Alex Jones show that Gina Haspel, who Donald Trump has just successfully had confirmed as the CIA director, was actually the liaison between British intelligence, between GCHQ and the demented psychopath former CIA director John Brennan. So to put it another way, Gina Haspel is a wholly owned subsidiary of John Brennan. That's who the president has just appointed to head the CIA in his lust for torture. This is an enormous mistake. Now, don't get me wrong. It doesn't mean that the Politico headline today that speculates that if I am jammed up by some bogus charge conjured up by special counsel Robert Mueller, which is entirely possible because right now they are sifting through every molecule of my being looking for something. But the idea that I would roll on Donald Trump, that I would bear false witness against him, is a lie, and Politico is wrong. That story, which broke this morning, has gotten wide speculation that I may be a witness against the greatest president in my lifetime, and that will not be the case.
You know, it gets more and more clear to me, and this doesn't get to the deepest levels of what we're dealing with here in the swamp, but I think that the average audience listener will understand this, and perhaps new audience members that don't understand the complexities. It's more and more clear to me that for a lot of the people in the D.C. swamp that might not be the most corrupt people, even in the media, might not be the most corrupt people or total fake news artists, but D.C. has kind of been like the loser brigade to a sense, where this is kind of, you know, the career politicians, the members of the media that only make it because they're friends with these people and they give them the scoops and the leaks and then they can print the stories. But whoa, Trump comes in, an outsider. He hasn't done his time in D.C. He hasn't done his time in politics. This isn't right. He's not part of the loser brigade. He hasn't suffered like the rest of us. He can't just come in here and run for president. How dare he? It seems to me like there's a real element of that here, Roger, where they're just so mad that an outsider would even come in and win to begin with. They thought they had a stranglehold here, and all of a sudden Trump comes in and is just like, I don't care about your D.C. establishment. Screw you. This is for America. And they're just freaking out because now they're like, now they realize, here's the thing. If more people like Trump started to run, the losers in government like Adam Schiff and Eric Swalwell would never have a chance in hell again. That's what really frightens them, I think, Roger.
Well, I think you make a very good point here, Owen. The opposition to Donald Trump is both elitist and cultural as well as philosophical. He is not of the ruling class. He's actually gotten his hands dirty making money the American way. No, they absolutely hate that. And they hate that he cannot be bullied, he cannot be bought, he cannot be blustered, that he answers only to the American people, that he answers to no well-heeled special interest. And that really drives them insane. They told him repeatedly, no, Mr. President, you can't end the Iranian nuclear deal. It's a masterpiece. It is the signature achievement of the Obama administration. It's great for world peace. You can't undo it, except for he did. They said, oh, Mr. President, you have to sign the Paris Climate Accords. It's too late. You can't pull us out. It's what everybody expects. But he pulled us out of that flawed agreement. TPP, Mr. President, we must move ahead with another multi-international trade deal that helps continue to steal the jobs from America. No, we're not doing TPP. So he has stood up, in many cases, to the people directly around him, time and time again, because he marches to his own drummer. Look, it is great to be in the news, as I have been today, but Alex Jones is on the page 1 of today's New York Times because of the latest phony, frivolous, false harassment lawsuit that's been filed against him. We are hours away from launching the InfoWars Legal Defense Fund because, in all honesty, Owen, as you know, we can't expand our coverage. We can't expand our studios. We can't hire new people at both the technical and on-air level while we have this massive influx of phony lawsuits. Every time you turn around, Alex Jones and InfoWars or Roger Stone are being sued by some new leftist financed by George Soros or worse. And now they are smearing Alex Jones. They're trying to put words in his mouth. They're claiming he said things about Sandy Hook he never said. They don't report his clarifications of what he did say. It is nothing short of vicious character assassination. But it will cost hundreds of thousands of dollars to fight because lawyers are not cheap. Robert Mueller is combing through my business activities, my political activities, my tax returns, presumably my bank accounts, trying to find out if I illegally bought a soda pop. Folks, my legal bills, like Alex Jones, are costing hundreds of thousands of dollars. So either go to stonedefensefund.com or the InfoWars store where you can see this donation grid and help us. We need your help. We need your help to keep moving and expanding at InfoWars. We need help to beat back the left-wing jackals who want to censor us, and the first step of their plan are these legal smears. We'll be right back. Welcome back. You're on The War Room with your co-hosts Roger Stone and Owen Schroyer. And thus far, we've been talking about the Mueller investigation, the way the media treated a previous special counsel who was looking into corruption and personal abuse of women by a Democratic president, with the way they have treated this witch hunt conducted by Robert Mueller. But now I want to turn to a different issue, because I think it is fair to say that there is no issue out there in which Owen Schroyer and I feel more strongly than the issue of animal abuse. I'm very proud to say that we here at the War Room were in the forefront of an effort to expose the abuse of dogs by the Veterans Administration, where man's best friend, in some cases puppies as young as 6 weeks, were being used for a series of bizarre but scientifically useless medical experiments, having holes drilled in their heads, being fed crystal meth, inducing heart attacks, collapsing their lungs, subjecting them to toxic fumes, submerging them in ice water to see how long it took them to die. Thank God they heard our appeals launched here and with the help of millions, and President Trump zeroed the funding for those medical experiments out of the VA budget. But then we turned around and found that the Environmental Protection Agency was conducting the same kind of vile experiments against dogs, feeding them lard to make them obese, and then subjecting them to toxic exhaust fumes to see them die a painful death. Now, in a new piece that I wrote for the Daily Caller, we learn that the government is also now abusing cats. This is a catastrophe, and it must be exposed and ended. Joining us now is a man who's been in the forefront of this vitally important fight. Dr. Anthony Bellotti of the White Coat Lab Project joins me now to help expose this travesty against these little creatures. Dr. Bellotti, welcome to the War Room. You're with Roger Stone and Owen Schroyer.
Well, Roger, thank you for having me back. You said it. The federal government is out of control this time. Last time I was on the show, we talked about waste, fraud, and abuse at fundamentally the worst government dog lab of them all, which was the VA. And InfoWars, the audience here, and thanks to you for helping to expose the Daily Caller via the Daily Caller, we helped defeat and defund the VA's maximum paying dog labs. They zeroed that one out. But the new fight, ground zero, where we have to take the fight now, is what is fundamentally the worst cat abuser in the federal government, and that's the U.S. Department of Agriculture.
So what could possibly be the Agriculture Department's excuse? Why are they abusing cats and kittens? How do they justify these outrageous actions? Is there some medical or scientific benefit for the taxpayer here that I'm not seeing?
No. This kitten slaughterhouse, as it's been dubbed in the media, kitten slaughterhouse at the USDA has been taxpayer funded. It's a very important point. This is taxpayer funded government abuse. It's not talking about pharmaceuticals. We're not talking about cosmetics. We're not talking about private industry here. We're talking about good old fashioned Beltway grants. And the USDA has been doing these toxoplasmosis experiments on kittens. Baby cats, 10 weeks old. And it's been going on since 1970 at taxpayer expense. And what they're doing, you're looking at these cats right now. What they do with these 10-week-old kittens, they breed up to 100 of them a year. They feed them rotten meat infected with parasites. They collect their feces. Then they grab the kittens. They stick a needle right through their heart, kill them, and incinerate them before they're 3 months old. It's been going on since 1970. To put that in perspective, Roger, that was the year the Beatles broke up. That was the year the U.S. invaded Cambodia. That was far too long ago. And it's still being funded for no good reason at all. Veterinarians agree, doctors agree, and scientists agree. I mean, this is outrageous. And the USDA simply refuses. They refuse to adopt out perfectly healthy, treatable cats. There's no reason why the taxpayers shouldn't be able to adopt these kittens. USDA refuses. They simply throw them in the garbage like trash.
So this clearly is a cause that the InfoWar audience can engage in, and I'm prepared to do whatever is necessary to stop this wholesale abuse of animals, whether they're dogs or cats or any other creature created by God. What can people do today to make this stop? How can they join the fight, Dr. Bellotti?
Well, the single most important thing that we need to do is direct everybody's attention to www.usdastinks.com. www.usdastinks.com. usdastinks.com. Make your voice heard and tell Congress to pass the Kitten Act. It's the single most important thing we can do to defund and defeat the USDA kitten slaughterhouse. Your audience was instrumental in helping to take out the VA's dog labs, to zero them out. You've taken the fight to the EPA, the FDA, and all the rest of them. But the USDA kitten slaughterhouse is ground zero, and USDAstinks.com is where we need to turn our attention now.
All right. My good friend, Congressman Matt Gaetz from North Florida, in the forefront of that legislation, I am proud to say. I'm delighted you could join us here today. I want to invite you to come back and let us know how this important fight is going. Ladies and gentlemen, a great American, Dr. Anthony Bellotti, joined us today from the White Coat Lab Project, where they have been in the forefront of protecting all these animals. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having us again.
Well, there you have it, Owen. It seems like the Trump administration is slowly shutting these operations down, thanks to your efforts and mine and many others here at InfoWars and in our vast audience. We got them to close down the vile medical experiments at the Veterans Administration. We're close to doing so at the EPA, but now it's kittens they're going after. What do you think of this, and what can we do?
Well, the craziest thing about it, Roger, is this is one of those stories that you'll probably only find via InfoWars, or thank God for you writing about it at the Daily Caller. I mean, this is the type of story that nobody hears about, and for the most part, it just doesn't get the attention. Yeah, okay. Everybody, though, if they heard about this, would say, this needs to stop. So I'm glad that we're highlighting this. I'm glad that we're getting people to recognize that this type of abuse needs to cease, especially if it's going to be funded by taxpayers. So this is a good cause, Roger. And I like it, too, because it's not a left-right thing, a conservative, liberal thing, Republican, Democrat thing. This is a humanitarian thing, and I think that that's why people are willing to get behind it. And all it takes is a little awareness, like we had last time to save the dogs, a little awareness, and maybe we'll be able to save these little kittens.
All right, so USDAstinks.com. Go there. Make your voice heard and join us in this important fight. You're on the War Room, and we'll be right back. Welcome back to InfoWars. I'm Roger Stone with my colleague Owen Schroyer, and you're right here at Freedom Command Central. That's right, it's the War Room. Owen, the big news today is not Robert Mueller or Adam Schiff or anything else. It's the letter that the president sent to the leader of North Korea canceling the upcoming summit. This is an extraordinary letter if you've read it. And while Congressman Eric Swalwell and others are gleeful that this diplomatic effort is collapsing, I think they may be counting their chickens a little too soon. You see, Donald Trump is the man who wrote the art of the deal, and this letter was designed not to push the North Koreans away, but to bring them closer. And I predict to you, and I could be wrong, it's happened, but I predict to you that there will yet be a summit, and that this letter will bring the North Korean dictator to his senses. This is what Donald Trump does best. He is the greatest single negotiator in American business history, and this is a high-stakes negotiation. My money is still on the president.
Yeah, and my money is still on that they're able to reach a peace deal, Roger. But two angles I want to get into this with you are, one, what role do you think John Bolton's comments about a Libyan strategy had on this lack of or cancellation of the summit now? And then also, I mean, you saw the terminology in the letter. Is this Trump engaging in hardball tactics with the Asians because he knows that that's what they respect? How do you see this going?
Well, I read that letter as the iron fist inside of a velvet glove. I mean, Libya is a mistake that continues to mar our foreign policy and will for decades. There was a time during the 2016 campaign when Dr. R.K. Paul of India approached me to say that he, Congressman Walter Fauntleroy of D.C., Congressman Dennis Kucinich, had actually engineered a written deal with Gaddafi in which he had agreed to abdicate and leave the country. And despite the fact that they presented this to General Wesley Clark and to Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, Gaddafi was murdered anyway. And his gold, amazingly, Owen, disappeared. Now, black people are being sold into slavery in Libya. The country is in civil war and a violent collapse. This is what Hillary hath wrought. I tried to find out whether it was true that there had been a peace deal secretly reached, or I should say an abdication, and that is the subject of today's Wall Street Journal story, because I reached out to Randy Credico. The emails detailed in the Wall Street Journal prove he was the back channel, to see if WikiLeaks knew anything about a secret settlement in Libya that Hillary and Obama had ignored in favor of bloodshed and instability. Yes, I most certainly did that. And such an activity would have been legal. Sadly, Credico and therefore WikiLeaks produced nothing. But I think you're right in the sense that Bolton's comments could have been a factor here. This entire exchange is by no means over. I know Donald Trump. I've known him for 40 years. You notice that every time he has talked about this, he has tempered his optimism by saying, you know, maybe this won't happen. It's possible nothing will happen. That would really be too bad for the world and for world peace. Maybe we'll have a deal, but maybe we won't have a deal. He's been circumspect and sacrosanct about that. And now nobody can say this is blown up in his face, because he has proceeded in terms of these negotiations extremely cautiously.
Well, and one thing I said earlier on the broadcast is that this cancellation of the deal has been the mouse that roared, in the sense that I agree with you. The deal is probably still going to get reached. In fact, the tensions coming from the cancellation of the summit are probably actually going to bring Trump and Kim Jong-un closer together. I do suspect it was John Bolton, whether intentionally or unintentionally, that had some part in sabotaging this summit with his North Korean comments. But I feel that it gets way too much coverage here, Roger, where you tune into television news all day and they're talking about the cancellation of the summit, but everybody ignores Trump's roundtable yesterday, where he was talking with local law enforcement and leaders about how they find out that MS-13 gang members, that some of the ones that they've caught, you know, guilty of rape, murder, etc., they go back and track how they get into the country. They use children. So they give these gang members children to sneak into the country, and then the children essentially get, you know, abandoned when they get across here. So then there's a whole new problem there. But nobody covered that because everyone's talking about the North Korea cancellation. You have congressmen calling for a special counsel. They do a 50-minute public announcement on it. 12 congressmen calling for a special counsel into the Hillary Clinton email investigation and the closure of that, as well as the origins of the Trump-Russia collusion probe, gets no television coverage. So it's kind of, I think, and I do see this as, at least in the eye of the public, as a loss for Donald Trump. I mean, that's how it's going to be looked at to the average citizen, I think, that this was a loss for Trump, even though to me it's the mouse that roared. Don't you think, though, that's why the mainstream media is making such a big deal out of this? Because they can paint it as a loss for Trump, whereas if they covered the MS-13 roundtable, or they covered the Congress calling for the special counsel into the Clinton email investigation and into the Russian probe, you know, that would give Trump a chance for victory in those two instances, but they don't want to give Trump that chance to victory. Do you agree with that?
Well, it's not over till it's over. I think this is just the first step in what will be a drawn-out kabuki dance. But Donald Trump understands money, and he understands the use of power. There's a line in here in which he says, it's a shame that you are passing up a future of prosperity and wealth. He knows exactly what he's doing. So we're not at the end of the negotiations. We're at the beginning of the negotiations. Of that, I have no doubt. And I'm still optimistic that Donald Trump can pull this together. He's gotten much closer than any previous president. I think that's because the saber rattling has worked, meaning they finally realized that in Donald Trump, they don't have a patsy like Barack Obama, who will draw a line in the sand and sit back hopelessly while our adversaries step over it. No, you've got a real man in the White House. You've got a tough guy who's not going to take any crap on behalf of the American people. Just not. It's a new day. Trump is a brawler. And as he said in the campaign dozens of times, maybe hundreds of times, he's sick and tired of seeing this country being a punching bag. He's sick and tired of seeing us disrespected around the globe. He is tired of seeing them dissipating American blood and American dollars around the world to the detriment of the American people. So there's a new sheriff in town, and I still bet that a historic peace deal in the Koreas may be in the offing.
Roger, you're probably not going to see this individual on your best dressed list, maybe your worst, but I mean, do we have to send Dennis Rodman back over there? Do we have to replace John Bolton with Dennis Rodman here? I mean, I'm being kind of facetious, but I mean, seriously, at least I know Dennis Rodman doesn't want war.
Well, Owen, if you come down and visit me here in South Florida, we can find Dennis Rodman any night of the week just by going to the closest gentleman's club, and I guarantee you he will be there. I'm never in those places, so I haven't seen him personally, of course, but people have told me about this.
I think we may have to arrange this, Roger.
In any event, it isn't over till it's over, and this negotiation is in the early stages. Anyone who hasn't read the president's letter should go online and do it. It is a masterpiece of the carrot and the stick. Let's stay tuned to the story. You're on The War Room. Roger Stone, Owen Schroyer. We'll be right back. Welcome back. You're at InfoWars. We are the tip of the spear, and you're on our newly expanded programming here at The War Room with my congenial host, the ever dapper Owen Schroyer. Owen, I want to go back to this point because I have just finished reading the New York Times article about this harassment lawsuit against Alex Jones. And I must tell you, this is part and parcel of the new tactic of the left. They call it lawfare. This is where they file across the board expensive, frivolous, baseless, but very expensive lawsuits, smearing people like Alex Jones, smearing people like me, smearing people like you. And their goals are twofold. One, they want to generate a negative headline that is divorced from reality and the truth about what Alex Jones actually said and did when it came to Sandy Hook, and then use that headline as a rationale on the internet at YouTube or Yahoo or Google or Facebook or Twitter to censor us. But their other goal is to bankrupt us, to drive our legal expenses into the millions so that Alex Jones has no choice but to shut down. Because of the extraordinary war against us on the internet, the war of censorship, we've expanded more into radio and television in the last couple months, and now we're reaching more people than ever before. But we can't do it alone. And that's why we ask our many supporters to go to the Infowars.com store now and look at our special Memorial Day sales. And if you're not in the market and you're not interested in our Memorial Day Patriot specials, if you're not interested in Brain Force at 50% off, or the Super Male Vitality special Mike Zimmerman formula of a Super Male Vitality at 50% off, if you're not looking for Immune Wall, which is now 50% off, which this time of year I highly recommend, well, then consider just a contribution. Go to our donation page and send us $25 or $50 or $100 or $500 or more. Yes, some in our InfoWars audience have sent as much as $1,000. Every single dollar that you send will be used to wage this fight. We don't have fancy offices. We don't have high-paid consultants. We don't have unlimited expense accounts. We put the money back into the fight. We put the money into the expansion of our programming here and the finishing of the state-of-the-art studio that Alex Jones is in the middle of building. We need your help at InfoWars, folks. This is not a cry of wolf. This is a cry because the wolves are at the door, and they seek nothing so much as to silence us, to end our First Amendment rights. Think of a world without InfoWars. Think of a world without Alex Jones. Where will you get the truth? Because once they get us, make no mistake about it, the Breitbarts, the Daily Callers, the WorldNet Dailies, the Sean Hannitys, the Tucker Carlsons, the Cheryl Atkinsons, the real journalists, they are next. We are the test case. If they can get Alex Jones, if they can get Roger Stone, well, then every conservative journalist, every alternative media outlet in America is in danger. In recent days, not only have I had to bear the invasive inquisition of the Lord High Executioner of the Deep State, Robert Mueller, but as Michael Caputo reported right here yesterday on the Alex Jones Show, there are more and more questions about Alex Jones. What is he doing? What is he like? How often do he and Stone communicate? What are they talking about? Why do they want to know? The right to free association under our Constitution is a God-given right. The right to speak is guaranteed in our Constitution. That's why they want to kneecap InfoWars. That's why they want to shut us down. They even want to take away Rob Dew's hat. We must stop them. Please go to the InfoWars store now. Buy one of our great products. If you can't think of anything you need, I'll tell you something you need. My new book, Stone's Rules. This is my operating manual, folks. This can be for the InfoWarriors what Saul Alinsky's blueprint is for the left. And now you can get Stone's Rules at a special price at the InfoWars store. There it is. Order your copy today. If you mail it to me, I will be happy to autograph it and mail it back to you at my personal expense. So you can get an autographed copy of this great book. Buy it at the InfoWars site. We'll give you an address where you can mail it, and I will mail it back to you at my expense. It would be my honor. That's how strongly I feel about this great new book. Owen Schroyer's read it cover to cover, and he tells me he thinks it's the best book I've ever written. Personally, I prefer The Man Who Killed Kennedy, The Case Against LBJ, but you need to buy that one too if you don't own it.
And if for nothing else, for Rob Dew's hat, people, please support us at InfoWarsStore.com. And I got to tell you, Roger, actually, I'm going to take advantage of your autograph book offer as well. I'm going to get one for my father and give that to him for Father's Day. So a great Father's Day gift as well. Stone's Rules from InfoWarsStore.com, an autographed copy for Father's Day. How about that for a great gift? Well, Roger, we are on the tail end of your segment here with us, and I'm not sure if there's anything else you want to get to, but I got to say, it's incredible to me how now, after denying it for a year, the FBI has to admit they spied on Trump. Clapper admits they did it. James Comey is still, well, now James Comey is admitting they spied. He lied about it. But look at Yahoo News headline. How right-wing media creates a conspiracy theory out of nowhere. Spygate. What? Out of nowhere? Out of thin air? I mean, Roger, the FBI even admits it now, yet leave it to Yahoo News to defend the deep state and their illegal spying. I mean, this is next level propaganda right here.
Well, as you know, Yahoo News currently employs this guy, Michael Isikoff. You remember him.
Oh, you mean the guy that spiked the Monica Lewinsky story. You mean the guy who went to Christopher Steele to fabricate a Russian P-Gate story. Yeah, that Michael Isikoff. Yeah, the one that they used to spy on the Trump campaign. Yeah, that one. Yep.
Yeah, well, specifically, the FBI fed him information about the dossier, so he would then write a story. Then they took his story to the judge in a federal court and used it to rationalize their quest for a phony FISA warrant. That means Isikoff's not a journalist. He's a shill for the FBI. He works for Yahoo, which is, I'm a little surprised, though, and I thought you would pick up a clipping from a real news organization, but you read a story from yahoo.com. And if I had a copy of it right now, I'd rip it in half and call it fake news.
Wait a second. You want me to do it for you, Roger?
Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it. Go ahead.
Jay Willis, who actually writes for GQ, but the story is published on yahoo.com. Spygate, how right-wing media creates a conspiracy theory out of thin air. No, we created a real news broadcast out of a real conspiracy that originated at the Obama presidency to spy on Trump illegally. Yahoo.com, you are a shill for the FBI, and you are fake news.
Wow, that was so good. That made me feel so good. I have to do this. Politico says Roger Stone will spill Donald Trump's secrets. Fake news.
I got one for you, Roger. Roger Stone sought information on Clinton from Assange, emails show, as if you're some sort of Assange Russian asset they want to imply in the Wall Street Journal with that fake news story. What was that author's name again, Roger? What was her name?
Her name is Shelby Holiday.
Shelby Holiday
of fake news. Great name.
Shelby Holiday, you are fake news.
So there you have it. There she is, Miss Fake News herself. If you see her coming, run the other way. Duplicitous, dishonest. In her story today, she parses my quotes, purposely using pieces of them, but not all of them. So when I said, for example, to Randy Credico, my confirming source, keep running your mouth, I'll sue you. Yes, absolutely. If he keeps defaming and lying me, I will sue him in a defamation civil suit. Precisely what I was saying. Stand by every word. But I have journalists saying to me, the Wall Street Journal unearthed these emails. They didn't unearth them. I supplied them. And I didn't give them to the House committee because they didn't meet the criteria, the precisely worded criteria of the House committee's document request. Adam Schiff, you lose.
Boy, they just keep losing, Roger. And, well, we're going to have more victories. So we'll talk to you again. Roger Stone for the War Room. There he goes. Okay, we played in a special live broadcast before the War Room the entire 50-minute breakdown of the congressman calling for a special counsel into the Hillary Clinton email investigation and why it was shut down prematurely, as well as the origins of the Trump-Russia collusion probe. So that's going to be just totally blown out of the water when those special counsels are actually enacted, and I would guess that they will be. But that hardly even cracked television media. Neither did the MS-13 roundtable hosted by President Trump yesterday. So I've got a powerful clip right here from it. Guys, roll clip 7. This is an MS-13 victim parent thanking Trump for tackling this issue.
I would like to say thank you, Mr. President, for all the hard work that you've been doing since you got into office with help eradicating this gang, help bringing some type of peace to our home, even though it's still not going to be the same. For those who don't know, who haven't been through this, we have to go through this every day. It's an ongoing struggle. It's not easy for us, especially me, to wake up, look down the hallway, and not see my daughter laying in her bed or me waking her up for school in the morning. It's very difficult. You know, we missed 2 birthdays of hers. This would have been their graduating year this year. And it's very sad that all these loopholes for all these past couple of years, decades, that have been allowing these criminals to come into our country, into our towns, into our states, and do whatever they want, and they feel they can get away with it. That's why, Mr. President, I'm glad that you're at the forefront of this fight and that you're taking this very seriously. This is a fight, in my opinion, that should have been happening a long time ago. I don't know why it hasn't, but thank you for doing what you're doing right now. And I do honor what you're doing, and I do believe that you are going to do your best to eradicate this gang and all other gangs.
Now, why don't you see that clip all over TV? In fact, I've got another clip we'll go to of an MSNBC reporter going all over the place at Santa Fe looking for someone to decry gun violence. Can't do it. By the way, we were at the same scene. We had crowds of people gathering around us. The MSNBC reporter, who happens to be an attractive girl, nobody even knows who they are, cares about them. Everybody wanted to talk to us, but I digress. Notice, though, again, if liberal activists were actually consistent and true in their activism, the same arguments that they apply to gun crime, they would apply to MS-13 violence. The same virtue signaling they do using kids to attack the Second Amendment and the NRA and gun rights, they would use to go against MS-13. So why doesn't that happen? Why don't they care when people get murdered and raped by MS-13? Why don't they care when MS-13 traffics children and murders children? They do not care. But as soon as there's any shooting, they immediately rush to blame the gun, rush to blame the NRA, rush to blame Republicans, don't even mention the shooter's name. It's like the shooter doesn't even exist. It's the gun's fault. It's the NRA's fault. Now, here's Trump saying America has the worst immigration laws in the entire world. I'll respond to that, but listen to this clip from President Trump.
Well, it's crazy. Brian, we have the worst immigration laws in the entire world. By far, other countries laugh at us, and it's because of the Democrats. It's because of Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi.
If a deal doesn't include those two things, but has the wall and DACA, is Donald Trump do that deal?
I think it's time to get the whole package. It's not such a big deal, Brian. It's time to get the whole package.
You're a victim of your success in one way. You have.
Now, the only thing I would disagree with Trump on is worst immigration laws in the world. Now, we have some loony things like the diversity lottery program, and even the DACA thing is loony if you really think about it. Why would we be allowing people in the country illegally to begin with? But that's the problem. We're not following the immigration law. If we actually followed immigration law, sanctuary cities wouldn't exist. If we actually followed immigration law, DACA wouldn't be necessary. So that's the key. We don't follow the law. That's the sound of InfoWars rising. You know, I was discussing mainstream media with a friend of mine yesterday and comparing it to the NFL. And we were saying, is the NFL relevant? Is the NFL dead? And I said, well, the NFL is relevant enough. And then we kind of translated that into well, what about the mainstream media? Is the mainstream media relevant? Is the mainstream media relevant? And I said, well, the mainstream media is already dead. Mainstream media is an animated husk. Mainstream media is a walking corpse. If you don't believe me, just look at their ratings tanking. But check out this video clip of an MSNBC field reporter trying to get comments from Santa Fe students to add to the gun control debate, of course, to attack gun owners and guns. Watch the MSNBC field reporter fail in this clip.
You think about Parkland that happened in February. There's been a national debate about gun safety and gun reform. What do you guys think should be done?
Yeah, it's just kind of hard to control some of this stuff. I just say, you gotta be kind to others, because you say one wrong thing to one kid, and that could set it off.
Have you heard what you want to hear from lawmakers, from the governor, from your senators?
I haven't heard much, but I've seen stuff about our school, and somebody said that they're going to be donating metal detectors to our school. But I just think just simply locking the doors to anywhere, just locking the doors from outside, having the kids all come in one way,
like having a border?
Looking for suspicious things, locking the doors to every classroom, that'll prevent a lot of things from happening.
We saw the teens in Parkland really become the voices of the movement for gun reform across the country. Now your voices have become all important. How do you feel about that responsibility on your shoulders right now, Trenton?
It's just kind of what it is. It's sad that it happens everywhere, but you just kind of have to go through it.
This generation, Stephanie, as you heard, I mean, the stats are staggering, and they are showing unity, resilience, incredible example, not only for the community of Santa Fe, but for the rest of the country and the world. Thank you guys for joining us today.
Sorry, Mariana and Tencio from MSNBC. You tried to bait them into going for the gun control argument. You tried to bait them into demonizing the guns, and then you tried to speak for them in your sign out when you realized they weren't going to fall for the bait. Ha ha, hee hee, ho ho. That's what happens when MSNBC goes to Santa Fe. Look at what happens and the content we get when we go to Santa Fe.
Now I'd like to invite the United States Senator Ted Cruz up to say a few words as well.
Tonight, all of Texas is grieving. Our entire state and all across the country
So this is on the Alex Jones channel, the full HD report, but I'm going to move it actually forward to when we were able to talk to the students, because that was the powerful footage that MSNBC tried to get, but because they wanted to politicize their opinion, they didn't get it. We got the real content because we didn't try to politicize anything. We just let their voices be heard. All right, we're gonna have that report here in just a minute. Let me know when it's going. But
in my AP World History class, we were watching a video. We had our AP test yesterday, and we heard someone running up and down the hallway screaming. And we were like, okay, and then a fire alarm went off. So, you know, we thought there was a fire in the cafeteria or something. We went outside, and we were in the parking lot for about a minute or two. We heard a few pops. They weren't super loud, so we didn't think they were gunshots. We thought we were just coming from the cafeteria. And then we saw a whole bunch of people just sprinting over from that side of the school, just scattering. And so after that, everyone just started booking it towards the back roads behind it. And we got there, and there's a police truck and one of our teachers yelling, "This is real, y'all need to go." And we went to a gas station that was kind of about a block over from the high school. And the kid that did it, we call him Fupa. He played football. He was a junior varsity defensive lineman. And it's just, you know, the way he dressed, you saw some signs. But whenever you talk to him, you just never saw it. And it just really brings up the question, like, you never notice when these people have the head issues when they do. And I just wish that, you know, someone there would have had like a gun or something just that could have stopped him before he did the things he did to my friends.
Before we get into your experience with Dimitri, just what was it like today? You're in class, you hear the shots. I mean, what's going through your head?
Thinking just run. Get out of there. Go, 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 go. Don't stay any longer. Because if you stay, you're going to die. If you run and you go, you're going to live.
And here you are.
Here I am living. So there was some small banging noises, and we thought, oh, that's kind of weird. And we saw a couple people running. Not many people were running that much. Then there were even louder bangs, and then everyone started running. And
that's when you knew.
Yeah, that's when I started running. He seemed like a good guy. He seemed like a bright individual, you know. He took advanced classes, pre-AP, AP classes, like university level classes in high school. You'd never think he'd be the type of person to do a school shooting. Last time this happened, it wasn't an actual shooting. It was just a drill. That's all it was. And everyone was just silent. No one really talked. It was like dead. It was like no one was there, but people were there. No one was really talking, because you can't just pretend 10 people didn't just die. You can't like say, oh, that's fine, nothing happened. You just can't pretend that. You can't do that. So
do you think that the drill in the past helped for this, or do you think it hurt?
No, I think it hurt a lot, because I think Dimitri was plotting against this. I think he was doing something. He was watching the drills, watching what happened and how it was orchestrated to develop his own plot, his own plan to counteract what the drill was doing and make up his own plot and plan to kill people. I think that's what happened.
I haven't heard. He's quiet. He's a nice guy. He has friends, so to see him do that is actually unexpected and very sad that he did it too.
So what goes through your head as you prepare to go back to school? How do you make that a normal routine and try to put this behind you? Is that even possible?
It's gonna be a struggle at first. I wasn't really processing it. It's gonna be a little weird that the people that died today, not gonna be able to see him in the halls at all. It's gonna be like a change. It's like changing something in your house that you always saw but then not there anymore. So it's gonna be a little bit of a struggle to most people to just feel that, wow, this person's actually gone, what are you gonna do? So maybe over the weekend after processing it, you might actually I gotta put this, realize that they're in a better place.
My son goes to school out here, and they text me this morning about 10 to 8, and there's a shooter at the school, and so we had to go pick him up.
Are you the full report in HD, cut up by one of our new editors here? Drew did a great job out there on the road with me. So again, though, I'm standing there, and I've got people coming up to me, fans. It wasn't like the typical fanfare when I'm at a Trump event or something, but people coming up, shaking my hand, wanting to say hello, telling me how much they love the products. And so I'm sitting here talking to these people. You can see the realness. You can see the genuineness of that content versus what Mariana Antencio tried to do when she was speaking to them. She tried to get them to say what she wanted them to say. She tried to get them to go along with her political propaganda, and they just wouldn't buy it. And so she just cut it. She just said, okay, we're not getting what we want here, so let's just politicize it here myself, and then we'll just cut it like that. So it's just sad. But not only that, I mean, I actually happen to like Mariana Atencio. I think that she just does her job over there at MSNBC and just is comfortable with it. And I don't know how much she really gets into these issues. But it just shows you the difference. She's literally walking around with a three-man camera crew and a producer. It's just me and Drew, who has 3 cameras going at once, and an InfoWars mic, and we get all the attention. Nobody even notices her. Are you serious right now? I don't have that type of power. I've just been told to offer Mariana Atencio a job. Well, I'll tell you what. Go to InfoWarsStore.com and buy a tube of Super Blue fluoride-free toothpaste for 50% off. Or you know what? We've got free shipping store-wide. And listen to some of the specials we have for Memorial Day weekend. 50% off Brain Force Plus, 50% off Super Male Vitality, 50% off Bodies. I don't know. Maybe we bring Mariana Atencio to a real news organization, InfoWars, and steal her from MSNBC. I don't know what the government-run MSNBC pays these days. So this is the Memorial Day special, 50% off everything that you can find pretty much at InfoWarsStore.com. Check it out. Well, we need to do our part in helping President Trump drain the swamp. And our part is making sure we're voting the right people into the House and into the Senate to drain some of the swamp members in the D.C. establishment. One of them would have to be Claire McCaskill, senator from Missouri. I've been dealing with that woman seemingly my whole life. Can't stand her. Anti-white male bigotry that comes out of that woman's mouth seemingly all the time. But Austin Peterson right now is trying to win the nomination for the Republican Senate seat and then defeat Claire McCaskill, and he's actually gaining momentum, and it looks like he is on the road to victory. Austin Peterson for U.S. Senate at AP4Liberty is his Twitter handle. But Austin, we could talk about the campaign. I think everybody is kind of well aware of the campaign, but I actually wanted to get into some current events with you. You're also very well known on some current events and issues like that, and I want to get the people to know where you stand on some of these issues. So if you don't mind, would you like to talk about some current events with me?
Let's do it.
Well, there is a case right now, and I know that you are a pro-life candidate, so this is something that would be right up your alley. Pro-abortion judge won't recuse himself from Daladin case. So as we know, David Daladin got undercover footage. He was working in this case actually for months, getting the breaking undercover footage from Planned Parenthood, admitting what they do to the children, admitting how they sell it, getting the illegal activity on film. Well, it turns out he is the one that it looks like is going to face jail time, not Planned Parenthood. Planned Parenthood gets nothing. David is the one facing charges now, an unbelievable twist there. But guess who's behind it? The same judge you can find behind all these anti-Trump rulings, William Orrick. This guy is a scum on the bench, William Orrick, absolute scum. What do you think we need to do, Austin? What will you do if you get into the Senate to stop these pro-abortion judges from determining the country's fate? It'd be one thing if he recused himself, but how about a judge that is knowingly biased on this issue, and now Daladin's case winds up in his hands?
Well, you're asking the right person, because one of the most important jobs of a federal senator is to make recommendations to the president of the United States on what types of judges we need to be putting into office. I think there's something like over 100 vacancies at the moment right now. The Democrats in the Senate have been obstructionists to getting President Trump his court picks. And I do think that abortion should absolutely be a litmus test for any conservative who cares about life, liberty, and property. Without life, there is no liberty. So we do need good pro-life judges to be sitting on the bench to make these kinds of decisions. But this is what happens when you have Democrats in power for so long. You know, conservatives only really got their mojo back in the 1980s with Ronald Reagan, and now back with Donald Trump. We haven't seen a good, strong conservative president, somebody who advocates for pro-life judges for quite some time, since you and I were kids. But we do need to look at that as a litmus test for who we decide to put on the bench in the coming years.
But beyond just whatever, political opinion that we want to say about pro-abortion, pro-life, pro-choice, don't you think it's even a bigger issue when a judge who's openly pro-abortion is going to decide the fate of an individual who, to me, was a hero, put it all on the line to get this undercover footage, and then Planned Parenthood gets off scot-free, and he's the one that's going to end up in jail probably because of this judge? That just doesn't seem like proper justice to me, Austin.
I agree. I think that there's a conflict of interest there. The judge should recuse himself from the case if he has an interest in the outcome. And I would absolutely, as a senator, investigate that. Right now, I don't have the authority until I get elected.
Well, and that's why we got you on. We want to raise more awareness for your campaign. I know that, you know, many people don't realize, but you kind of are going up against establishment at two levels. First, you go up against Hawley in Missouri, who's already establishment in Missouri. I don't have too much negativity to say about him. You can talk about that if you want, but it is establishment you're going up against there with Hawley. And then as you're getting momentum and it looks like you can win the nomination, then you're going up against the real establishment. That's Claire McCaskill. So you've been censored on social media. You've been dealing with the battle versus the establishment. I mean, how's that going? I mean, it's got to be eye-opening just to see the entire force of the establishment against one individual who challenges the system.
The halls of power have been shaking for the last week, Owen, because a new poll here in Missouri shows that I destroy Claire McCaskill by a double-digit lead. We were polled, general election voters were polled here in Missouri, and they found that Austin Peterson, if he was the Republican nominee, would beat Claire McCaskill by 16 points. Not only would we get her with regular voters, but when we looked at the demographics, we saw we're leading her with women by 17 points. We actually do better with young people by 41 points here in Missouri. So if they want an absolute blowout against Claire McCaskill, then yeah, they should vote for me. You know, Owen, in Missouri, there's a lot of people, when I go across the whole state campaign, you know what they say? They say they're ABC voters, anybody but Claire. A slight majority of people say that. They just want somebody who can beat her. And this new poll shows what I've been saying for a long time. The AP for Senate campaign here in Missouri can put together a coalition of Republicans, that's 50%. Libertarians in Missouri got 6% against Claire last time. That's 56% right there. And it just so happens that when the polling came back, 56% to Austin Peterson and 40% to Claire McCaskill. So not only am I getting all the Republicans and Libertarians, I'm even stealing a few Democrat votes from Claire McCaskill when you look at the data. It's very exciting. Of course, the establishment, Mitch McConnell, the swamp, they are all behind Josh Hawley because he's a yes man. He's the type of guy to go and bend the knee, say whatever he needs to say to get elected. I've said a lot of unpopular things during this campaign, but at the end of the day, you may not always agree with me, but you know where I stand. And that separates me from a lot of people who want to go to Washington or who are willing to lie to get elected. I will not do that. I want to seek to be an honest representative of the people of Missouri. And right now, things are looking very good. I haven't raised as much money as Josh Hawley, but I'm doing way better than he is in the polls. And the swamp hates that. Man, they hate that so much when an anti-establishment guy gets momentum. So we just got to keep pushing, brother.
Well, and let's be perfectly honest here. I mean, you never had a chance to outfund Josh Hawley. He's got the establishment already in his back pocket. He's already been serving in the Missouri government. But you're running an actual true grassroots campaign, boots on the ground, local outreach, and that's been your advantage, I think, in this election. But to go back to Claire McCaskill, you know, this is such an important race, I think, with you and Hawley, because Claire McCaskill's seat is right for the taking. I mean, I think that seat is right for the taking. Missouri's had enough of Claire McCaskill. She's done nothing. She's a nothing. She's a nitwit. And is she even campaigning? I mean, where is Claire McCaskill? Nobody even sees her anymore. So it's really important, this opportunity to take that seat from a Democrat like Claire McCaskill, but then put someone like you in who's really going to battle for America, really battle for putting American first and doing the right thing every time you step on the floor.
Think about this, all right? So nobody who is running on the Republican side, even Josh Hawley, is not going to raise more money than Claire McCaskill. But if money could buy elections, Hillary Clinton would be the president, right? Trump was outspent something like 10-1 by Hillary Clinton. But Trump was a hard worker. He was a strong campaigner. He showed up in states and areas of the country where Hillary Clinton just refused to even go, where they called it flyover country. And Donald Trump won Missouri by 19 points. I think that Claire McCaskill sees the writing on this wall. And the deal is this. I mean, if you want somebody who can actually build a coalition to beat Claire, well, then you need to put up Austin Peterson. The guy that I'm running against, yeah, he's for Mitch McConnell. Yeah, he's for gun control. Yeah, he's for unconstitutional warrantless surveillance, you know, that FISA stuff. And I know that all your listeners on this are no fans of the NSA.
Yeah, you know what? We got to go to break, and we can get into more of that. But you're hitting on a key point right now as well that I want to talk about. We'll be right back with Austin Peterson on the other side. Don't go anywhere. All right, I do want to get into the illegal spying by the Obama administration on President Trump with Austin Peterson, who is running for Senate right now in Missouri. But first, Austin, I want to ask you a question because there's a formula here I imagine that you're going to attempt to tap into, but also that others that are in similar shoes as you trying to defeat deep state candidates in order to get into the Senate or into the House. And in the state of Missouri, it goes down like this. Now, if you're in Pennsylvania, it would be different, but it's basically the same formula, and that is the two areas of Missouri that have the most voting power are both indoctrinated into voting Democrat. That's St. Louis and Kansas City. You break down any election in Missouri's history, whether it's local elections, Senate elections, presidential elections, most of the state goes red, and then you have Kansas City and St. Louis that go deeply, deeply blue, and then maybe a little Columbia, Missouri in there, but most of those kids aren't voting in there, or they're doing, votes whenever you're out of town. I forget the name of it. So what are you doing right now, or what do you think other candidates that are in the similar position you're in need to do to win those key votes in the main cities? I mean, those are the main voter blocks right there that, at least in Missouri, the Democrats use to win elections. If you can steal those votes or mitigate those votes, I think it'd be an easy victory for any Republican. So what do you do, or what do similar candidates do to get those votes in the cities that really change these elections?
Great question. Every state's different and every city's different. So you have to be, you have to look at this on a micro scale a little bit. We're still sort of digging through the poll data, taking a look at some of the key demographics that we perform well with. For example, why are we doing so well with women compared to Claire McCaskill? You would think that perhaps women would want to vote for a woman candidate. So we're still trying to determine why we're doing so well. I have an idea why I think that I'm doing so well with young people, 40 points better than Claire McCaskill with young people, which gives me a lot of hope that I can spend some time on the college campuses, which I actually have been to MU and given some speeches there to the college Republicans and to Turning Point USA. The young people there are really excited about my message. But at the end of the day, Owen, I'm a different kind of a Republican. I'm a Ron Paul Republican. I'm a Rand Paul Republican. I mean, it's a different kind of Republican. A liberty Republican is someone who has a message that can unite not just Republicans and Democrats, but it can also bring in a lot of independents. So what we're seeing with the poll that came out is that compared to Josh Hawley, I actually take more votes away from Claire McCaskill. More Democrats cross over to vote for me than they do for my Republican opponent, because I go and I talk about things like criminal justice reform, ending the bloody war on drugs, this prohibitionist war, which costs us $27 billion a year and gives more power and authority to the deep state and to the feds, right? And I talk about other issues as well, like getting rid of mandatory minimums, which does really well when I'm in St. Louis. Especially where we had Ferguson, right? So being a different kind of Republican with the type of platform that I am, right, that kind of liberty Republican, it sells very well. So I'll spend time on college campuses, but I'm not afraid to go to Kansas City or to St. Louis, talk about how criminal justice reform and a liberty Republican is much better than an authoritarian Democrat. And you know what? The polls are showing that. That's why I'm beating Claire by 16 points right now, because I'm a different Republican.
Well, and I don't know too much about Kansas City's politics, but I know enough about St. Louis's politics to know that they want something fresh. Really, they're dying for something fresh right now, and that's an advantage that you have, regardless of what letters behind your name, that you are a fresh face and that you have fresh ideas. I think a lot of the people in St. Louis are looking for that, and as long as they hear your message, I think that it's a victory for you. So that's the key, is getting that message out there. I would imagine that the reason why you're doing so well with young people has to be your social media outreach. There are not too many candidates that are doing so well on the social media platforms as yourself, and that's despite the censorship that you've had to deal with as well, with them shutting you down off Facebook and Twitter, etc.
You still got a lot. You still got a lot of fans out here, Owen. I was laughing because we had a Senate debate a couple of weeks ago, and someone came up to me and asked me to sign a hat that they had, and it was a "Make America Great Again" hat. But then they were like, "I want you to sign it right next to Owen Schroyer." So you had apparently signed somebody's hat, and they asked me to sign it right next to Owen Schroyer, and they're your hero. So I appreciate the interview because you're helping us get the message out to people, Owen. So thank you.
Well, that's why I do it, and I have to say, I don't know if you saw I'm not much for signatures. I really don't do signatures, so you probably saw some chicken scratch.
Scarcity increases the value, so.
You're like, that's Owen's signature? It looks like chicken scratch. But anyway, Anyway, let's get into the illegal spying, though, because this is a serious issue, and it looks like Trump is really starting to fight back. And we need more people in Senate and in Congress and in the House that are going to get on Trump's side with this. But this is pretty incredible. I mean, what do you make of? Let's just kind of break down the timeline here. First, you have, well, we always said that Trump, you're being spied on. They have a mole in your campaign. We had that intel. Then the New York Times prints the story saying Trump was wiretapped. That's when the news breaks. Then we report on the New York Times story and they say, Trump was never spied on. You're making that up. It's fake news. Okay, now here we are. The FBI admits they're spying. We have all the documents that admit they were spying. We know what it took for them to get the spying. And now they're admitting they're spying, and Clapper admits it. They all admit it. They say, oh, well, it was for your protection, this, that, and the other thing. But still, to this day, media tries to tell us that there was no spying and we're conspiracy theorists. I mean, I can't even, like, this is beyond Twilight Zone, Austin Petersen. How did we get to this point?
Well, I really am eager to become a senator next year so I can have access to some of the classified information that would help me make a good decision on these things. But what I can divulge is that what I've seen is Senator Rand Paul in the confirmation hearings for Gina Haspel asks specifically whether or not American intelligence agents asked British intelligence agents to spy on candidate Trump. So what they're doing, it's very similar to what the recent FISA authorization that went through. Senator Claire McCaskill voted for this FISA 702 provision. And what it does is it doesn't allow for warrantless surveillance of American citizens directly. It allows for surveillance indirectly. And that's the problem, because what they'll do is they'll be able to get information from a foreign national. And if they've communicated with an American citizen, they don't have to get another warrant in order to listen to an American's phone call or read our emails. Sounds like something similar happened with candidate Trump. I'm not 100% certain, again, because I don't have access to those briefings. But one thing's for sure, the deep state is out of control. Our intelligence agencies have turned against our democratic processes, just like Eisenhower warned. A military-industrial complex has taken over and is trying to subvert our democracy. Now, when I say our democracy, of course, we are a republic with some democratic aspects. I know this audience is very keen to make sure that I understand this is a republic. But if we want to keep it, like Benjamin Franklin warned us, we need good constitutional senators. And that's why I'm running to be the next senator from Missouri, because we need to get people in there who actually will preserve, protect, and defend it, Owen.
Now, isn't that what you want in a senator right there, ladies and gentlemen? That's why we bring these guys on. That's why we want Austin Petersen in there. Austin, tell us where people can find your website, people can donate, people in Missouri can find you next. What is next on Austin Petersen's list?
That's austinforsenate.com. Thank you so much for showing that up on the screen. austinforsenate.com. We really need phone bankers. Donations are great. Obviously, we could really use the cash to help get people out in the streets. But if you can't donate and you're out of state, well, you can volunteer to phone bank. If you go to austinforsenate.com, click on volunteer. And if you're looking for me on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram, hit me up at AP for Liberty. That's AP, the number 4, AP for Liberty. Owen, thanks for all you do. You're a great American.
All right, Austin, thank you. And we'll make sure to get you on again here, because we got to get you in the Senate, and we got to make sure you win the Republican nomination, because that's the victory that'll get you in the Senate. I think McCaskill's ripe for defeat. She does nothing for Missouri, and St. Louis is ready for something fresh. And if you can win that market, I think that you can win in the Senate elections. Austin Petersen, there he goes. Glad to be joined by him as always. And it's just great as we're doing these interviews with all these people running for office. I mean, that's what we need in the Senate right there. I mean, it's so refreshing. It's such a different message. And it's just not a career politician, man. You know, I'm just sick of the career politicians. Claire McCaskill, just get out. But no, she can't get out because she knows no different. She's a career politician, and that's why they hate Trump. Trump is a threat to their stranglehold on the career politician. Trump is a threat to the stranglehold on the D.C. establishment that only lets the insiders in. It's time for the outsiders to get in and blow this establishment up. Final segment of the War Room on the other side. Don't go anywhere. All right, final segment here in the War Room. Now, I've got some news I got to cover, but I got this clip that was just brought to me. I don't even know exactly what's going on. Apparently, Hillary Clinton has just embarrassed herself again. But did you know that the Clintons are doing another fundraising campaign for the Clinton Foundation? I mean, unbelievable. As if it's not a kick to the groin enough to have that arrogant witch going from college to college, spitting on America, spitting on the citizens. Now she's going to have a fundraiser, a $10,000 a plate fundraiser. Oh, man, I'm telling you. Sick of that witch. Clinton, you belong in jail. So let's go to this clip. I haven't seen it yet. I'm told I'm going to be just absolutely shocked by it. So here we go. The Hillary Clinton clip just came down the pipeline. Let's have a listen.
If you want an economy that works for you and your family, you've got to vote for Democrats. If you want to be sure you will have affordable, quality health care, you've got to vote for Democrats. If you want to protect and expand the rights...
Pause right here. You know, I could sit here and I could respond to all these little things that she's saying. Obviously, total lies. Working families, this, that. Total BS. Look at Democrat-run cities. The economy tanks every time. The industry gets shipped out. I mean, it's just such a joke. They want you to live on welfare. This is such a, I mean, so I can sit here and I can break down all the lies and the virtue signaling. But you know what? I'm not even going to do that because it's redundant at this point and you already know it. Here's the point. Please, please keep sending Hillary Clinton out there for the Democrats. Please do that. Do you know she just lost a presidential election? See, this is the incredible thing. She's so arrogant, and the Democrats are so out of touch with reality, or I guess so blackmailed by her. She's a loser. In no other point in time in my lifetime in modern political history has a losing presidential candidate stayed on the platform. They walk away. They disappear. They're the losers. They're cast out. They know to go hide at least for a couple years before they resurface. So maybe the whole aura of being a loser dissipates. Not Hillary, though. She just owns it. I'm the biggest loser on earth. I can't win a presidential election. In fact, every election I win is usually from cheating. First election I ever won, my opponent died. Yeah, how about that for the Clinton body count? First election Hillary ever won, her opponent died. Just a coincidence, I'm sure. But here's Hillary Clinton campaigning for the Democrats. Please, keep sending Hillary Clinton out there to campaign for the Democrats. America hates this woman. Let's go back to the witch.
Americans, not just those in the top 1%, you've got to vote
How's
for
your
Democrats.
back brace doing?
If you believe in a woman's right to equal pay and to make her own health care decisions, you've got to vote for Democrats.
Honestly, take it down. Take it down. I can't do it. You got to vote for Democrats. You guys remember when she was doing that? Why aren't I 50 points ahead? Donald Trump is a misogynist. What? Oh, my God. Now I'm... Thanks, Dew. Thanks, Dew. Dew comes in the office. He's like, you got to see this clip, dude. You're going to be fired. I can't deal with it, man. You know what? I want to enjoy. No, I can't finish the clip. I can't do it. All right, finish the clip. I'm sorry, audience. Finish the clip. Dude, I'm serious. I can't do this.
Equal pay and to make her own health care decisions, you've got to vote for Democrats.
Look at that witch. Just look
if you believe in well-funded public schools and colleges that respect our teachers and help students succeed, you've got to vote for Democrats.
Just listen to the autonomy in her voice.
If you believe we need actual common sense gun safety laws to save lives, you've got to vote for Democrats.
Pause it. Did you know, this is unbelievable, the Santa Fe shooter pretty much broke every law on the book. Sawed-off shotgun, illegal. 17 years old, can't have a gun, illegal. Can't have a gun on campus, illegal. Literally every law was already on the book to stop the Santa Fe shooter, and it didn't work. Keep campaigning for the Democrat Party, Hillary Clinton. You know what? This is amazing. The Democrats are dead. Hillary Clinton, hold on. The Democrat Party's already dead. The Democrat Party's already dead, and Hillary Clinton just pulled out a 12-inch blade and is stabbing the corpse right now. This is Hillary Clinton stabbing the corpse of the Democrats. Let's go back.
A real crisis with climate change, you've got to vote for Democrats.
Nobody believes you anymore.
Believe we can stand up for our values.
Oh, pause it again. I can't. See, I'm telling you. And now, they tell me they just released. I forget who it was. Somebody puts out a story. If you deny the science of climate change. What science? You don't have science. You mean Al Gore's science? Inconvenient truth? what was that, 2004? An Inconvenient Truth with Al Gore? Look at all the science. Look at all the science in Al Gore's documentary in 2004. Literally not one of it comes true. Zero. Al Gore gets a 0% on the test. Do you realize Al Gore just got a 0% on the climate change test? And then, go back to it. Just go back.
You've got to vote for Democrats.
Yeah, I don't know.
If you believe in comprehensive immigration reform and protecting dreamers, you've got to vote for Democrats. If you believe in getting money out of politics and getting all voters to the polls, you've got
money
to
out
vote
of politics.
For Democrats.
Oh my God! Oh my God! This woman is about to have a hundreds of thousands of dollars fundraiser. I just broke the microphone. You see what you did do? Get on the camera right there. There's your guilty party. I just broke the microphone. You see this? Can I get a doc cam? Look at this. I'm going to hold it the rest of the show. All right. No, this is what we're doing now. This is what we do now when we have to play Hillary Clinton clips, is I break the damn microphone. How about that for a, there we go. I mean, wow. The unmitigated nerve of this woman to tell you if you want to get money out of politics to vote for Democrats. She's having a $100,000 fundraiser right now. She's not done? Okay, hit me with it.
And if you believe that standing up for evidence and reason and respecting the rule of law is critical to our democracy, you've got to vote for Democrats.
Okay. All right. There we go. There it is, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, man. Whew. That's a humdinger right there. I hope the this microphone is, we might need a replacement here. Okay. Whew. Let's try to recover from that. Wow. Talk about gaslighting. Okay. Now, I covered this yesterday. Sean King falsely accuses Texas state trooper of sexually assaulting woman. Says that he raped her and kidnapped her. Total lie from Sean King, a fake black guy. Isn't even white. Like, what is this guy's deal? Whatever. The point is he's a total fraud. Probably votes Democrat, loves Hillary Clinton. But this is unbelievable. He claims to be a victim of his own false reporting. Now here's the thing. There's actually some legitimacy to this. King admits that he shared a false news story, but suggests that he was among the victims of her false report. Oh, now you understand something. Let me explain how this works. Almost every time the reports that come out originally are false reports. Almost every time. Now, I want to be clear. I'm not saying police brutality doesn't happen. I'm not saying there aren't racist police. I'm not saying there aren't issues. There absolutely are. When there are, we cover them. Okay? But the media and the left has turned it into such a political issue and a divisive issue that it's like, it's so toxic you don't even want to touch it anymore. But to Sean King's credit, he has a point. But this is on a larger scale. Saying he's the victim of the original false report. Dude, that's the case every time, and the media runs with it. So Sean King ends up being an example of the mainstream news every time in these cases. Take a look at Mike Brown. What was the first report? Hands up, don't shoot. Total fake news. The coroner said it was fake news. The investigator said it was fake news. The jury that was made up of all black people said it was fake news. Yet to this day, they still report hands up, don't shoot, even though it never happened. Even the Washington Post admits it. Now, I was on the ground for this whole thing. I'm from St. Louis. I'm from Missouri. I covered this entire thing from the ground via my radio show in St. Louis at the time. Now, just to show you where I come from and the consistency of my message, I was interviewed by a Post-Dispatch reporter who asked me what I thought was behind all this. I didn't want to cry racism. I didn't even want to blame police. What I said was, it's the war on drugs that is driving this divide between police and citizens. I said that just last week on the show. There I am saying it, and when was that? Like 2014? I said the protesters don't deserve tear gas. They don't deserve guns pointed at them. This is an issue of a tyrannical government and oppressive system that we all need to buck, and I cite the war on drugs. So that's the issue here, okay? That's what we need to be focused on. And don't report fake news coming from the first reports like Sean King and CNN do. You stay classy, Info Warriors.
Guaranteeing your food independence is a crucial part of prepping. Between debt crisis, natural disasters, or even simple power outages, having a supply of storable meals is crucial. With InfoWars Life Select storable food, you can make sure you and your family are ready for any emergency. With drinks, snacks, and meals in amounts ranging from 72 hours to a full year, there's no better place to look for healthy, easy, and incredible meals. Including meals such as Traveler Stew, home-style potato soup, and a variety of other meals for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, InfoWars Life Select storable food will help you eat comfortably in a time of need. They even work great for camping. Simply pack a 72-hour kit to go and you have easy-to-cook and transport food for you and your loved one's trip. Don't be caught surprised by an emergency. Make sure you're stocked up today with all the food you need for an affordable price with InfoWars Life Select storable foods.